Dear Sagittarius, there is a tall man walking toward you, but he does not move with his feet. He arrives through invisible currents of air, touching the deepest corners of your soul. He is not human, but a form woven from the dreams you thought you'd forgotten. He comes not to take anything from you, but to stir a part of you that has been asleep for years, a part of your spirit that was once brave, once burning with fire, and then buried quietly beneath disappointments no one ever saw. For Sagittarius, the symbol of the soul's journey toward truth, this man is the embodiment of a soul lesson left unfinished. He is an unforgiven memory, an unresolved karmic thread, a question that never received an answer, echoing like a sound that repeats itself in the dreams you tried to forget, but that always return, as if someone is whispering your name from another world. And this time, you can no longer ignore it. How long has it been since you last said that name aloud? The name that once made your heart ache, and yet keeps resurfacing, like a shadow in your thoughts, like the old smoke left behind after a fire has gone out. Maybe you've grown used to a peaceful rhythm of life, used to folding things neatly away, tucking them deep into quiet corners. Everything may appear calm, and you tell yourself that was long ago. But for a Sagittarius soul, where the fire of truth always burns quietly, nothing ever truly ends. All emotions merely retreat, hiding deep inside the heart, turning into a whisper only you can hear, a repeating dream, a strange feeling in your sleep, an anonymous gaze, yet so familiar your heart suddenly falls quiet. Because truth never truly disappears. It only waits for the moment you're strong enough to turn around and face it. I once thought memories would fade like morning mist, subtle, colorless, and harmless. But then I realized some people don't remain through words or presence. They remain through silence, and it is that silence that makes them eternal within us. Maybe you too are carrying an unfinished encounter, a connection never given closure. For Sagittarius, a soul that always moves forward, it's hard to turn back. But sometimes a part of the past needs to be seen again, not to relive it, but to release it. Just as light can only shine once you've walked through the darkness, healing sometimes begins the moment you face what you've been avoiding for too long. There is an ancient Buddhist teaching that says, hatred cannot be ended by hatred. Only love can do that. You don't need to hold on to everything, but you do need to let go of what no longer belongs to you. And that letting go, that is the gate to a new chapter. For a Sagittarius heart, one that has been hurt from loving too much, trusting too quickly, this is your invitation to return to the purest version of yourself. No more anger, no need for revenge, just forgiveness, so that you can finally be free. Because love is not just a feeling. Love is the deepest act of liberation. And if you are reading this now, and a name rises softly in your heart, pause. Do not rush away. Let the light lead you back. Not to relive the pain, but to reclaim the piece of your soul you once left behind. You don't need to live in the shadow of unspoken things. You are the light, and light is never afraid of the past. If you are holding something inside that has never been closed, leave this affirmation in the comments below. I am ready to face it, heal it, and be free. Love is not a fleeting emotion that brushes past your life like wind. Love is where you were born. The primal language your soul knew before you ever learned to speak. And in the Bible, God whispers to the lost, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you." Maybe the person you loved, the one you hoped for, waited for, trusted, is no longer beside you. But that love did not vanish. It only changed form. It became a soft breath in your deepest dreams, a quiet image in memory, or a question that no one could ever answer. I once met an old woman in California. She lived in silence for 3 decades after the man she loved passed away. No complaints, no public tears, but one night, in a dream, he returned. He said nothing. He only reached out his hand, a final gesture as if to ask for understanding, not with words, but through forgiveness. The next morning, she woke in tears. But this time, they were not tears of despair. She began to write, not to send, but to finally speak the things she never dared say. And from that moment, she began to heal. If you are watching this video, maybe you are in that exact moment too. A part of your soul is trying to reach you, not to hurt you, but to remind you, you do not have to carry everything forever. You, a Sagittarius who has crossed so many emotional landscapes, have lived long enough to know. What hurts the most is not the past itself, but the things you've never faced. There is still a quiet wound inside you, and no one knows it's there. You sit there, maybe on a quiet afternoon or during a gentle night rain. Outside, the world remains unchanged, but inside something is still waiting. A gaze, a sign. Something small that proves the love you once gave was not in vain. Try closing your eyes, not to escape but to return. Let your soul ask, who is still waiting to be called by name one last time? You don't need to say it aloud. Let that name dissolve like smoke, soft and without regret. An old scarf, a heartbeat that no longer echoes the way it used to. If you've ever dreamed of someone standing at your door, silent, but not a stranger to your heart, write, not to explain, not to hold on, only to let go. Write it as a ritual, a soft farewell. So your soul can finally rest, because that person may not have come to take you away. They came only to speak your name one last time, before you truly return to yourself. A lighter version, a deeper version, a version ready to love again. You are not weak because you still feel. You are strong because you remain gentle enough to love even when no one is watching. And that is the holiest beauty of your soul. If this touches something inside you, leave behind a sign, a comment, an affirmation, a small ritual. No need for a reason, no need for advice. Only the quiet knowing that your soul deserves to be heard. Because if you are still here, it means a part of you is not ready to close that door. And sometimes, the one knocking isn't asking to come in. They're asking, have you opened your heart to yourself? Not every door leads to the outside world. Some doors open inward, into the places where you once left pieces of yourself. There is no address on the map, but your heart knows exactly how to find it. And today, if you are ready, we will take another step into a deeper layer. The door of the house you live in is also the door to your soul. Have you ever heard a knock, not from someone outside, but from within a dream? A sound no one else can hear. But your heart suddenly trembles, as if an old version of you has just awakened from a long sleep. That person, they may have left a long time ago. Maybe they exist only in memory, but somehow, they still find their way back to you, not to stay, but to remind you of something still unfinished. I once thought memory would drift away like water, slow, quiet, harmless. But no. Some people, instead of leaving behind words, leave behind silence. And it's that silence that takes up more space than any noise ever could. Sagittarius, you are a sign of fire, but your soul is fed by intuition, like water. You see what others do not see. You feel what no one dares to speak. Like the ocean, you never forget. You simply soften, you hide the waves within, and let them gently pull you back toward what was left undone. I do not believe in coincidence. I believe in soul appointments, written long before we were given form, an unfinished look, a sentence that never ended, a dream that returns just when you thought you had moved on. That person, they do not stir your life. They just stand there, silent like a symbol, a gatekeeper of the part of you that once burned bright, once trusted freely, but has been wrapped away in quiet pain. In Buddhist meditation, there is a beautiful image. The body is a house. The mind is its guest. How long have you lived only in the house of habit? How long since you last asked your heart, am I still here? Every knock on the door is a test. Are you still willing to open your heart, Sagittarius? I once heard a story from a widow in New Jersey. She told me, every winter a strange old man would appear at her doorstep. He never asked for anything. He would just sit there, quietly knock and ask, "May I have a cup of hot tea?" He never gave his name. He never explained why he came. But he always showed up on the exact anniversary of her husband's passing, as if the universe had sent a soul to stand in for the one she had lost, to remind her of a love that never went cold. So Sagittarius, do not ignore the small knocks. Do not assume someone's appearance is just coincidence. For you, a sign ruled by Jupiter. Nothing happens without sacred purpose. The universe does not shout into your ears. It whispers through repeated feelings, through dreams that return again and again, through things that seem meaningless, yet cause your heart to fall silent the moment they appear. You've been locked inside yourself for too long. You've grown so used to guarding yourself that you've forgotten what it feels like to trust. But you don't need to open the door for anyone else. You only need to crack it open, just wide enough for the light to enter. A single ray of light, enough for you to see, you are still there. You are still worthy of being heard. Place your hand over your chest. Say nothing. Just listen. There's a sound like wind chimes ringing inside your soul. A name perhaps has just appeared in the silence. Because sometimes a knock on the door is not meant to let someone in. It is meant to place a mirror right in front of you. A mirror reflecting the version of yourself you were before the pain arrived. Do you have the courage to look back? Not to blame, not to regret, but simply to smile and whisper, I was once that person, and I am finding my way back. If someone were standing at your door at midnight, would you be afraid? Or would you quietly open the door and face yourself? No more hiding, no more running. Only one question remains. Have you returned? And if you're still here, still listening all the way to these final words, then perhaps you are ready, not to open the world outside, but to open the deepest layer of your own soul. We now step into a deeper layer of the ritual, where the tall man is no longer just a character in a dream, but a living symbol of all you once buried. There are dreams that do not return often, but when they do, they leave behind a strange sound, as if they touch something ancient, something real, something painful, and something that now longs to be set free inside of you. I once saw a man like that, silent, unmoving, speechless. He simply stood there, as if he didn't need me to understand or remember, only to witness. At first, I thought he was a stranger, but the longer I looked, the quieter I became, until I realized he was part of me, a part I had intentionally forgotten because I never knew how to live alongside it. Maybe it's the same for you. The shadow in your dream is not someone who once passed through your life, but the form of an unfinished promise. An ending that was never sealed. A time when you folded your pain away and told yourself, don't ever open this again. But now he returns. Not to frighten you, but because you now are big enough, strong enough, mature enough to open it again. Not with panic, but with compassion. In Buddhist teaching, the deepest level of consciousness does not store memories. It stores the impressions of the soul. And in Christian faith, there is a quiet belief that sometimes the dead return not to haunt, but to illuminate a vow of love that was never completed. And perhaps that tall man is no one else. He is the debt you refuse to pay. Not to someone else, but to yourself. I once met an old woman in Arizona. She told me every time she prayed to the Virgin Mary, she would see a tall man standing right beside the door. He never did anything. He just stood there, looking at her with eyes full of sorrow. Not anger, not judgment, as if he were waiting for her to forgive herself. She said she wasn't afraid of him. In fact, she felt lighter, as if the Virgin had sent him, not to accuse, but to open the door for a confession she had carried in silence for more than 40 years. And one day, she whispered, I'm sorry for blaming myself for so long. And maybe you too are stepping into that very moment, where the person who appears in your dream is not there to remind you of failure, but to offer you a second chance. A chance to look back with new eyes. Eyes gentle enough to understand that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Sagittarius is a zodiac that always moves forward, but sometimes you must turn around. Not to relive what hurt you, but to release what was never acknowledged. You've grown used to living in a dusty attic inside your heart. A place where you hide the memories you never wanted anyone to see. But if today that tall man brings a lantern, not to expose you, but to help you see yourself with gratitude, will you step inside? If that room holds something sacred, a letter, a necklace, a handkerchief you once loved but buried away 30 years ago, do you have the courage to open it? Not to hurt again, but to say a real goodbye. Because maybe you are stepping into a sacred ritual of forgiveness. A ritual only you can complete. No one can hurt you as deeply as you have hurt yourself. And if you're still here, still listening to every word, I know this, you are ready. Ready for the encounter your soul has long awaited. That man is not just a shadow. He is an invitation, a ceremony, a sacred sign, appearing only in the dreams of those who have suffered enough, loved enough, and grown still enough to hear the call from beyond the veil. I believe every encounter carries its own frequency. A single look can tighten the heart. A silence can awaken questions you never dared to ask. And if he keeps returning, especially in your weakest moments, then this is no longer coincidence. This is a message, a whisper from God, a residue of karma, an ancient wound never faced, a ritual unfinished but still waiting for your return. In Vajrayana Buddhism, a ritual is not a string of formal gestures. Every breath, every gaze, if done with full presence, can open a new layer of awakening. And in Psalm 23, God says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Because even in confusion, light is already there, protecting, guiding, holding you. The universe doesn't ask you to understand everything. It only asks you to be present. Like the girl who shared the story of the last time she saw her father. He stood at the doorway and handed her a small wooden box. Inside, there was nothing. But she knew that emptiness was not a lack. It was a sacred space, meant for her to fill with the love never spoken, the questions never asked, the truths never named. And there are people who don't come to answer your questions. They come only to help you find the right one and leave you just enough room for your soul to begin its journey home. If you're still here with me at this very moment, dear Sagittarius, then maybe you are already inside a ritual you never even noticed had begun. A quiet ritual, but one that is softening your heart little by little. Not through sound, but through a vibration that doesn't come from your chest, but from your soul. Something ancient and very real is waking up inside you. You do not need to understand what is happening. You only need to be present. Right here. In this breath. In this vibration. In this figure you thought was only a dream. But is a truth deeper than any word. You do not need a Bible. You do not need a robe. You do not need anyone to validate what you are feeling. The only thing you need is your full presence. Maybe that man didn't come to teach you anything. He brought no message, offered no explanation. He simply showed up, so you could see yourself in a different dimension. A dimension where sincerity goes beyond language, where you are no longer a mind trying to make sense of things, but a soul finally ready to feel. Are you ready? Not to understand everything, but to sit with yourself, with no need to name the emotion, to justify the memory, or explain the pain. Just sit there, open your heart, and allow the sacred to enter. Because healing does not come through knowledge, it comes through silence, through sensation, through those moments when you think nothing is happening, but deep within, the entire universe is shifting. And then, in a completely ordinary moment, maybe while making tea or sitting on the floor, you will realize that encounter, it changed you. Not because the person said something, but because in the silence you heard yourself. A voice long buried beneath duty, beneath false strength, beneath the years of trying to hold it all together. After that encounter, a part of you will never be the same. And if that has already happened to you, please write it down. Not for anyone else, but as a sacred note to your own soul. I was there. I walked through it and I awakened. You can continue into a deeper layer. Because that man, he did not come to stay. He came only to call your name one last time before you truly woke up. Some encounters are not meant to last. They are as fragile as morning mist, just long enough to touch a part of you you locked away like a memory drawer no one was meant to open. That man brought no material gift, but his presence was the gift. A gift sent by the older version of your soul like a whisper. It's time to move forward. No apology needed. No one else required. No need to hold on to who you used to be. Some people don't come to stay. They come to awaken, to knock on a door you thought was long forgotten. They don't appear early. They don't arrive late. They come the moment you are ready, even if you didn't know it. That is how God moves. That is how karma exhales. That is how the unseen energy of the universe works, not through logic, but through frequency. Buddha once taught, everything is impermanent. And sometimes what helps you get through the pain is not an answer, but the realization that you don't have to hold it anymore. Only love is what must be released. Only love remains after all else falls away. In the book of Romans it says, all things work together for good for those who love God. Even pain, even loss. They carry light. When seen through the eyes of someone who has grown, I will always remember a letter from a 72-year-old woman who watched this message. She wrote, I waited 40 years for my husband to apologize, but then I understood he could not return, and I could not keep waiting. I needed to forgive, not for him but for myself, because I deserve peace. And maybe so do you, dear Sagittarius. You deserve peace. You deserve to enter a new chapter, one no longer tied to old memories. That man did not come to take anything from you. He didn't come to ask for anything. He came only to hand you a cup of tea. Not so you could reopen an old door, but so you could remember there is another door, one you've forgotten how to open. And the question is no longer, who will walk with you next? The question now is, are you ready to walk forward with only yourself and your quiet faith? No need to look back. No need for a farewell. No need to wait for someone to catch up. Just you and a silent trust that this is where your soul truly belongs. Do not fear loss. The greatest loss is not separation. It is holding on too tightly to something that has expired until you no longer have hands to receive what is next. Sometimes the only thing that keeps you stuck is not another person, but a memory you've tied too tightly to your heart. If today you pause for just a moment, take one deep breath, and truly listen, you will know it's time to let go. Not because you're giving up, but because you're ready to be free. The next threshold is not somewhere out there. It is your new self, a lighter self, a truer self, a self that loves itself more. And when you reach that place, you will no longer see that tall man standing there, because his role is complete. Now, it's time you see yourself. And if you feel something has shifted inside you, write it down, not for anyone else, but as a quiet ritual, a sign that your soul was truly present. Because this is not an ending. This is the first door you've ever opened, with your own hands. If this journey has touched somewhere deep inside you, leave something behind, a sentence, an affirmation, like a soft whisper saying, I was here, I was seen. And if you're still reading these final lines, then please know, you have begun. God is watching over you, the universe is holding you, and the light within you is beginning to rise again.